Evening, everyone. Thank you for your patience in joining us today. This is our installment of the Second Thursday Conversations. In the month of July, we're feeling very patriotic, and we wanted to talk to some of the veterans that are here in Greenville, working in their community, but also involved in politics. We're short on some panelists right now. Some are stuck in traffic, and others are joining a little bit late, but we do have one of the best and brightest with us today in Hao Wu. Before I introduce him and let him talk a little bit about his experience, I wanted to share a little bit about the work that is being done at the state level to be able to organize and focus and advocate for veterans and veterans issues. We have an SCDP caucus called the Veterans Caucus, just took over by new leadership. The chairman is a wonderful, wonderful veteran, someone who has served this country greatly from Dorchester County, so the other side of the state, but someone who's committed to serving people and serving the community and making sure that our veterans are taken care of. If you'd like to join, please reach out to our team. We'd be happy to connect you with this group that meets monthly, that is working on legislation with both Democrats and Republicans. Because what we know is that we need to make sure our veterans are not seen in a partisan lens, but are taken care of in a nonpartisan fashion. I'm so excited today because we do have some of the best and brightest veterans in Greenville County joining us to share a little bit about their story. Tonight, I'm going to start with our friend, Hao Wu. Have him introduce himself, talk to you about his military service and experience, and tell us a little bit about what drove him and brought him to Greenville County. So thank you all so much for joining us for our Second Thursday's Conversations, Veterans and Politics, and I'm going to turn it over to my great friend, Hao Wu.
Yeah, hello everybody. My name is Hao Wu. As you probably gathered from my name, I am not native to United States. I was born in China in 1985, at a time when there was a lot of turmoil. It was the end of the Cultural Revolution. My dad was a pro-democracy protester, and he was blacklisted as part of the Tiananmen Square protest. And I had the good fortune of depending on my dad when he escaped in 1996 to United States to join him in 1997. So for the first 12 years of my life when I was in United States, I was learning English, trying to enculturate myself in the American culture and learn the meaning of what it means to be an American while at the same time not being an American. So I will go straight into my service. I joined the military, unlike most other military members, as a non-citizen. Not many people know, but up until 2017, you can join as a non-citizen and earn your citizenship. There's somebody that became president that shall be unnamed around 2017 that did away with that program. I'm really excited. I think there are plans to bring the program of earning citizenship through service back in United States. But one of the things that I want to talk about in terms of my military experience is how revolutionary it was. The veteran experience is a revolutionary role that I'm currently still working through. I credit the military with giving me the training, the discipline, and honestly, the pressure necessary to push me to meet people from diverse backgrounds. I still remember the first day when I signed up to join the military as a non-citizen in 2010. It was in the midst of one of the biggest catastrophes of economics in United States. And I signed up to do basic training. And when I showed up, it was people from all walks of life. I instinctively knew that I was in the company of Cambodians, Nigerians, inner city Chicago kids, as well as California surfer and Texas cowboys. But we all looked exactly the same when we put on the uniform. And then we became fast friends. And by the time we were able to get into our civvies, which is short for civilian clothing, we realized that, underneath everything, our background and everything like that, we're all human. And the US government, or at the very least, the US military, gave us government issued insurance gave us government issued stipend, gave us government issued education, gave us government issued housing and transportation, and gave us singular missions to perform. And we performed them as one of the most effective fighting force in the entire world. So that was something that I tell my friends a lot when I talk about my military experience, is that, they ask me, why am I politically the way I am, and why, and who radicalized me? And I tell them that it's not even a matter about being radicalized. It's only a matter about the military really leading the way of showing what is possible when we shed all these preconceptions and we just put all our resources behind Americans, regardless of their background, and how effective we can be as a group of people. So after I was deployed to Iraq in 2011 and Afghanistan in 2013, I left military and I got my citizenship in 2012 and left in 2014 and came to the Upstate. By that point, my dad had become a professor over at Sherman College. So I came to the Upstate really to be with my family, which is a common story amongst a lot of transitioning veterans. Now, my dad went down to Auburn, Alabama, but I decided to make the Upstate my home because I wanted to give it a tenure of my life so that I can really put down roots and really see where my connections and my networks can get me. And I'm glad to say that the Upstate is a phenomenal place. There's a lot of growth. There's a lot of great things happening. Now, there are a lot of problems as well, but we should see them as opportunities rather than as obstacles. I'm proud to say that when I first got to the Upstate, I was able to work with nonprofit. I was able to engage in business, but even more than that, I was able to give back to the community by working with nonprofits that helped transitioning veterans, and that specifically help with mental health issues. I'm on the board of MHHEC and a number of other organizations that work with crisis line and things like that in Greenville. I'm self-employed entrepreneur, and I do a number of different things, but I'm getting into the nitty-gritty details. But at the end of the day, I just want to say that it is a pleasure and a privilege to be able to really put down the roots and meet awesome people that have made friend here in the Upstate. And I look forward to answering your questions and really look forward to kind of giving and really looking forward to give you guys my perspective on what military service has taught me and how it prepared me to serve and help people in the Upstate.
Thank you so much for that, Hal. I really appreciate your candidness, and I know people are going to be so excited to hear a little bit more about your experiences and how that kind of shaped, like you said, not radicalized, it shaped the way you look at life and the way that you kind of engage with the body politic. I'm so excited to have you all hear from my dear friend Shantell Smith. Shantell is a newer resident to Greenville, but she has made herself a big part of our community and has made Greenville her home. So I'm going to let Shantell tell you a little bit about herself, her military service and experience, and what brought her to our wonderful hamlet of Greenville County, South Carolina. Thank you so much, Shantell, for joining us.
Of course. Thank you, Elias. And thank you, everyone, for having me on this conversation. I think it's an important one, and one that, while it's always held up as something to talk about, it doesn't always get the conversations that it deserves. There's always a lot of lip service paid to veterans and not always a lot of action. So thank you so much for having us. I will start with my military service. So I'm a United States Air Force veteran. I'm 100% disabled, which means that I suffered an injury while on active duty that made me unable to perform within those duties and in those duties that they trained me for, is what we'll say. It doesn't mean that that I'm unable to work at all, and it doesn't mean that I'm not able to pursue my own individual endeavors as I see fit. So I served for one term. I did two deployments into Iraq, 2 deployments into Afghanistan. I was a part of a specialized unit. I was a part of combat search and rescue as a logistics manager. So I always say we were the SEALs of the Air Force, if there is such a thing. We were the paratroopers, first in, last out. And I was always honored to be a part of that unit, HH-60s, all that good stuff. Live free, die hard. I came to Greenville. Gosh, we were just doing the math. 10 years ago, I moved to South Carolina. So it's been a long time for me since I've been here. And my best friend is from the area. Just to give a little story of how I ended up here, my best friend's from the area. When I completed my military service, we met in Denver, Colorado, which is where I am originally from. She was there on a totally different mission. And I came home with her one time to Greenwood, South Carolina, and her family had this gigantic Sunday dinner and Big Mama cooked, and we were out in the country in Greenwood. And I just fell in love with the community of the South and the community of South Carolina. And then I came to Greenville shortly after that to attend Greenville Tech. And I fell in love with the city. I always say it's the trees for me. It's the green in Greenville for me. And it's just, the city has just grown on me. As the city has grown over those 10 years, I've been able to be a part of its development. And I absolutely love it, not only as a part of the Democratic Party, but my veteran service gave me an opportunity to be an AmeriCorps Vista. So I got to work closely with the Greenville County commissioned, Greenville County Human Relations Commission, as an affordable housing campaigner. So we campaigned for affordable housing, and we helped counsel people into credit situations, get their credit together, go through first-time home ownership classes. We lobbied the city and the county for funding for affordable housing, and affordable housing just kind of became my passion. And after doing a little bit of volunteer service with the Vista organization, I got plugged into all these different wonderful nonprofits. And you can't get plugged into the nonprofit scene in Greenville, South Carolina without eventually stumbling into the Democratic Party. And that's how that happened. And I met Elias and Tamisha and just some really, really great people who are super, super active. And every opportunity they get to involve me, and every opportunity that I get to be present and volunteer, I have taken as much as I could. In the midst of all of this, I've been afforded the opportunity to start 2 small businesses here in Greenville. I'm a landlord, so I took my love of affordable housing and turned it into buying rental property in underserved and gentrifying neighborhoods in order to keep residents in their homes for as long as possible. My mission is not to get rich quick, it's to keep neighborhoods steady and growing and contributing to making sure there's safe, affordable, and clean housing to the people who deserve it the most. And that I can directly relate back to my time in volunteer service with the United Way, and also my work that I've done with the Democratic Party. Did I miss anything, Eli? I think that's the in general of who I am and how I am.
No, that was wonderful. That was a great bio. I'm going to stay with you really quick.
Okay, please do.
You talked about that entrepreneurial spirit that I know both you and Hal share.
Yes.
Do you think that you had that before you went into the military? Was that something the military nurtured, or something you found in the military?
So the military is great it is a true lifestyle. It is not a job. You are always in the military all the time. And because of that, there is privilege, right? And there is comfort, and there is knowing that the 1st and the 15th, that paycheck is showing up, that BAH is coming, that BAS is coming. And it gives you some freedom to pursue your education in ways that you might not be able to if you had to fend for yourself all the time. It gives you freedom to, you meet people, you travel, you get really into communities that you live in, and you start to learn what other people are doing. And you have time and effort and patience, and more than that, you have discipline to pursue those things. You know how to follow a standard. You know what it means to wake up every day and do the work. You know how important missions are. You know how to operate within a team and teamwork in a way that means life or death. So it's very easy to translate to, you know what, this is the thing that I want to do. And I have all these great people around me, and I have the leadership skills that have been instilled in me by these United States Air Force, and I can utilize and exploit all of those things to become successful within my own right. Not to mention they pay for your education. So you get that for free. You get a head up in the fact that you don't come out with all of this education debt. Even right now, I was just granted a grant, which, since we're talking about things that are useful, there's a grant right now for veterans who are out of work because of COVID. And I was working right before COVID happened, and COVID put me out of work. And I was given a grant for either an associate's or a trade program. It's called the Rapid Reemployment Grant. And it's a part of the COVID Act that was passed by President Biden. And that grant, it gives me full access to kind of pick what I want to do, as long as it's something that I can be employed in that field within 1 year of graduation. And not only does it pay for the education, it gives me a stipend for housing. So I don't have to worry about trying to find another job. I can get in there, I can pursue my education quickly, and then I can get back to work with new, involving, and developing skills, which is what everyone that I know in the military, we're used to that. They keep you in education, they keep you refreshed, they make sure you know what is the latest and greatest, and you don't mind adding to your skill sets. And because I am a veteran, and because of my position as a disabled veteran, I'm able to still to this day get access to grants and funding and money to keep broadening my skill sets. And I have no problems taking advantage of those things.
I love it. And as we should definitely be providing as many opportunities to uplift veterans. I think everyone in our society, but definitely veterans who are putting themselves on the line. How I want to stay in that business sense. You are also an entrepreneur like Shantell. Talk to me about when you run into other veteran business owners. What are some of the challenges that you all face, especially with the pandemic that we just experienced?
I will say that actually, having had conversation with some veteran business owners, the challenges we face are all equal in the business world. I mean, you still, at the end of the day, you got to make the numbers work. We live in a society where you have to be able to make that payroll. You have to make those business sense. You have to make everything work. But I will say that, to Shantell's point, the military people that I met, regardless of where their background is, there's something unique about the brotherhood. There's something unique about the esprit de corps. And so when I meet other veteran business owners, there's that connection that is immediate. And there's that connection that made us realize that, oh, like this is the training that we all went through. And this is the honor, the integrity, and a lot of those things that are kind of drilled into us over and over again, day in and day out, through both basic training as well as everyday life is there. So I honestly, working with veterans are some of the easiest things to do, especially in the Upstate. And I will also say that in the Upstate as well, with the veteran community being as tight it is, being as diverse and also big as it is in the Upstate, I have found that a lot of veterans are sharing resources, getting really to know each other. An example that I love to use is, despite the fact that I identify as a Democrat, the nonprofits that are here doing some of the veteran homeless issue that are tackling some of the veteran homeless issues, I met in the Upstate, like Upstate Warrior Solution with Charlie Hall, or Fellow Countrymen with David Nardone. It transcends partisanship. Like, that is the best thing I can say, is that military service really transcends any kind of thing. Like, I can disagree with everybody about all those things, but immediately when I talk to them about the military service, about the common goals that we were fighting for, it immediately kind of just clicks, and there's that trust that immediately establishes that are very important. And I think that's honestly some of the most important thing that I have gathered. I will also say that for me, my business ventures are fairly, I don't want to call them unique. So I do invest in real estate, but I'm also an investor in business, startups, sports data analytics, manufacturing, and a number of those things. And within those spheres, there's a huge push to hire veterans. There's a huge push where, if we hire veterans, there is an expectation of, here is the qualification that is already there. So I think, I don't know if this is necessarily a challenge per se, but there's definitely a push within all the different spheres of Upstate society where we're recognizing that a lot of the misconceptions we have about mental health issues with regard to veterans are not necessarily an impediment, but rather it can be a source of strength for them to be hired on as workers and things like that. Again, it's a huge topic. There's a lot of things that I'm missing there, but I'll just stop at that.
No, Hal, you highlighted a lot of great points. And Chantel, feel free to unmute yourself and just jump in on the
Sure.
conversation if you want as well.
Thank you. Hal made, I mean, some excellent points, especially in regards to hiring veterans and the upstate. We're a manufacturing town, right? We get things done. We're mission oriented. Those things work perfectly with people who are used to being within structured environments. And I think that's something that people overlook about military veterans when they talk about their being leaders, their knowing how to follow rules, these kind of things. Well, they also do better as veterans when they're in structured environments and they're in workforces that require structure, attention to detail, integrity, teamwork. It's not all we don't all shoot guns in the military. Not everybody works on the front line. And I think people forget that. And some of us, I say this all the time, I always do better when I'm taking orders. It's just who I am. I just do better if someone can give me a directive, tell me how to do it, and I can get it done. And I think veterans as a whole have to be given more credit for that, because there are a lot of people who can't take direction. There's a lot of people who can't get from 1 to 2 and do it just the way it was written down on the paper. And especially when you're in manufacturing and engineering, being able to follow systems is really, really important. And yeah, Hal made an excellent point with that about how that if you're too OCD because the military just put that into you, manufacturing is the place for you to be. Let me tell you, because you got to do it the same way every single time.
And that's such a great point because we are a manufacturing city, county, our engine, and really we drive a lot of what South Carolina in general does. Yes, the ports are great, Boeing is great, but pretty much a lot of the other economic drivers are coming from the upstate. Sure. So I really appreciate the point that you all made. And I want to kind of stay on that. How I'm going to go to you first, and then Shantell, I'm going to come back to you. As we see the transition with folks coming back now, finally stopping the war or the conflict, whatever folks want to call it in Afghanistan, as we see folks come back home, one of the most disturbing things for me was seeing the difficulty in folks like Hal, combat veterans, who weren't able to transition seamlessly back into American life with a job. And it made zero sense because we have obviously a pandemic. These folks know how to deal in crucial situations, working in the worst of the worst settings with, I don't want to say no resources, but sometimes you got to be creative. So Hal, talk to me about what we can do to help those folks like combat medics, but also folks that are coming back and transitioning back into civilian life, how we can help integrate them into the workforce. What can we do as everyday Joe and James?
Well, that is a tremendous topic, but I will definitely try and answer a little bit of that. I will say that for me, the military really did a number on me for the training and the attention to detail that and all the good things that it gave to me, and the resource, right? I was able to earn a salary while at the same time enjoying federally funded insurance and everything along the way. So for me, it speaks to the future of really what a workplace looks like. Because we know, I call myself an entrepreneur, but I call myself a futurist. I call myself a critical thinker, because I think the future of workplace is going to look vastly different. When we talk about a lot of these returning veterans and how to retrain them, we have to understand that manufacturing and a lot of these work are going in a direction of more machines, more internet connections, and more the Internet of Things, and more artificial intelligence and things like that. So for me, it's actually much more important to talk about entrepreneurship with veterans. How do veterans come back, and with the skill set that the military have given them, how do they basically show that, we're here, we're going to get our education in critical thinking, we're going to get our training in how to perform all these tasks, and even beyond that as well, we're going to get our training on how we identify problems. I think the biggest portion that the military really gave me is being problem solvers. It's that thinking outside of the box, thinking mission focused, thinking outside of the box, realizing that, oh, the same thing that has happening hasn't worked. So where are other sources of answers and solutions going to come from? And I think part of the answer to that is giving the veterans more resources to retrain themselves and things like that. But I think beyond that as well, and I think to 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 the federal government's credit, despite the fact that we live in South Carolina, our small business, I talked to his name is Scott Thor. No, not Scott Thor. Somebody else. His first name is Scott. Used to be with the SBDC over here in Greenville, and they do a number of different kind of network meetings and things like that that really kind of give veterans a lot of these resources to connect them back into the community we have here in the Upstate. And I'm gonna get to what you asked specifically, the question of how can we so I think as a party with the Democrats, what we can do with veterans is recognizing that, veterans are our new generation of veterans are so different from the old generation of veterans. A lot of the veterans in the past ages, they are the American Legions. They are the veterans of foreign wars, and they're the groups who are kind of like, I am part of the World War II generation, or I'm part of the Vietnam War generation, and I'm going to stick to my club. That's not what we are as a new generation of veterans. We're much more diverse, we're much more trained, and we're much, much younger, and we're much, much more mission-oriented for sure, but also purpose-oriented. And I think that we as a Democratic Party needs to articulate our purposes more specific. And even more than that, when we talk about our purpose, it's like, well, how do we make our community a better place? How do we make our community a more open, more educated, and more accepting place? Because one of the key things as a veteran transitioning into a new area or into an old area without a job is that sense of vulnerability, that sense of, I gotta make friends fast, or I need those connections fast. And I think we as Democrats can speak to that vulnerability and speak to that purpose of helping each other, building a sense of community, and building a sense of camaraderie. And as a veteran whose backgrounds are just completely across the entire board, I think that is the only clarion call that can really unite the veteran community in the Upstate, as opposed to these very niche ideas that have been proposed by the other side of the political spectrum that I think honestly are actually alienating a lot of the veterans. And I think we could do a much better job engaging them, if that makes any sense.
No, that's it. I appreciate that. And Shantell, I want to open it up to you. You talked a little bit about those grants in your earlier answer about ways to retrain and how kind of brought that up. But piggyback off anything on that question, or feel free to take it in the direction that you feel you want to share.
First thing first, I want to, Hal said something at the very beginning about having federally sponsored insurance. And that is, Greenville County specifically has an amazing VA clinic with amazing support staff, with amazing doctors. I hear Veterans Administration stories about healthcare specifically that just break my heart, because I know that my general practitioner at the VA, who I've been with now for almost 10 years, my OBGYN, my trauma therapist, my psychiatrist, those people have shown care in my health that I don't even show sometimes. They are well-trained, they are competent, they could all be somewhere else doing very, very well. And they all have chosen to be inside of the federal system because they really do care about helping veterans. And I know lots of veterans who are serviced in that clinic, and I hear very few horror stories about inabilities to get appointments, about doctors who are just cattle calling you through. As a matter of fact, there's a specific program that Greenville County got funding for, which is a holistic research program. So we were doing Tai Chi and meditation circles and manifestation journals. And I mean, it's an incredible program that we've been given access to here in Greenville. And as a part of the Democratic Party, those are the echoes against the other side that you have to start putting forward, because those people who are working in those clinics are of a younger generation. They are of a more purpose-driven generation. And the VA healthcare system gets a bad rap. And we have been very, very lucky in Greenville to have an excellent clinic. They have put a lot of money into it. The clinic is less than, I think, 5 years old, the new clinic, and it's state of the art, and the people that work there care for the veterans well. So I just wanted to just say that at the very beginning. In terms of, I think he said it, right? That I can't go to the American Legion and join it in Greenville, South Carolina. I can't do that. And that's just the end of it. And you can run the list of isms that would keep me out of there, but I wouldn't even cross that threshold. I would not do that to myself or my self-esteem. So it's not even an issue. But there are places, right, Upstate Warrior Solution, where I can be seen as a veteran for exactly who I am, where the things that I bring to the table, which are different than what the average American may think of a veteran looks like, where those things are honored and appreciated, and it is important that my voice is heard, and I'm given an opportunity to be seen and be heard and to have a voice. And I think as a party, there's an opportunity here to draw on that, on the idea that, listen, we don't all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. And that's just kind of how this veteran wave is going. We're politically connected. We're paying attention. We've lived through now quite a few presidential commanders in chiefs for us, right? Our big bosses who have been, regardless of your political party or your political affiliation, radical, right? One was Black and one was Donald Trump. And I mean, it's been a lot going on in the world of commanders in chiefs in the last decade or so. And draw on that, because if you joined under George Bush and got to serve under Barack Obama, those are very different experiences as military members. And you do have an opportunity there as the Democratic Party to say, hey, we want you over here, but we want to hear you, and we want to take advantage, right, of you as a veteran and your voice and your influence, because it's not touched on enough just how influential a large group of veterans can be. Because people will respect that you served this country, and they will listen to you. And that's my piggyback on literally everything that Hal said, in the sense that he is absolutely correct. There is an opportunity here for us to be purpose driven, for us to draw those lines in the sand, and for us to say, you know what, all of these, your sexual orientation, your race, your gender, though, all of those things that sometimes get pushed aside in the military, or we like to act like are not happening. This generation's not going for that. Not only am I going to serve in this uniform, but I'm going to serve exactly who I am, how I am, with my hair the way I want it, and let us as a party show that we are embracing that, and we're open to that. And I think that's so, so very important.
I really want to personally follow up after this on each of you said something really important. How I love that idea of driving people to entrepreneurship, about giving them the skill set to come back and say, what's your passion? Here's some seed money. Like Shantell said, that associate's grant, that bachelor's grant, that's seed money.
Sure.
To basically say, hey, try it out, see if you can make this work. And then Shantell, I'm so grateful that you highlighted the unsung heroes at the VA, the people that do it for less pay, because you are right, they can go into private practice or telemedicine or something else and be making more ducats, but they do it because of service back to you all. And I'm so encouraged to hear that your experience is positive, because that is what it should be. Healthcare, I know for everyone is a huge issue, but for veterans specifically, one of the things that I wanted to talk about is access to mental health. So Shantell, if I can start with you, and then Hal, I'd love to go back to you. Is there a conversation with you and your former colleagues or your friends in the Air Force, Shantell, about mental health. How do those conversations come up? And do you feel like the military, in your experience, was an open enough place where you can discuss those things?
So my military service happened, my active duty service happened when I was in my very early 20s to my mid 20s. I'm 35 now, so I just want to preface it that way. I came in as a post 9/11 enlisted member. I was a George Bush kid. President Bush was my commander in chief when I came in, and we were rocking Toby Keith, and we were looking at weapons of mass destruction, and we was gonna bomb them and put a boot up their ass. That's what we was doing when I joined the military. Excuse my language. That's where we were. That was the political atmosphere that I joined the military in, and that doesn't exist in the same way anymore. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think there's a lot more critical thinking that happens in the military on the behalf of the people who join. I think the reasonings for joining the military are as old as time. There are financial benefits to it. There are educational benefits to it. Some of us don't have access to, not everybody can go to college, right? Not everybody's parents have money to send you to school. Not everybody can get out of their neighborhood any other way. And so why you join the military kind of may stay the same, but what you are joining the military for has changed a lot since 2002, 2003. And that being said, the conversation about mental health has evolved from there. Not only do we talk about it, but we kind of, I think for most of us, expect it. I think we know that we are in an extreme environment. There is access to the internet now in ways that didn't even really exist then. YouTube wasn't really big. Facebook was new on the scene. So those shared experiences weren't the same. But now we're talking about it. We don't feel like we're going to be punished for speaking out about things that are affecting our mental health negatively. The public is much more aware after the weapons of mass destruction, right? The public is much more aware of, I think, the propaganda that the modern government can, and the spin that they can put on war and wartime. And I think we're having those conversations now, right? Because my generation is retiring. My generation we are home now from those wars, and the impacts, we have language for the way that they impacted us in ways that World War II veterans, especially, and Vietnam veterans, even more so, who are normally the focus of veterans-based conversations when it comes to healthcare and mental health. It is still very focused in the Vietnam War. But we are Iraqi freedom. We are enduring freedom. We are Afghanistan and Iraq. We are Osama bin Laden. That is our generation. We have the language to say, this is post-traumatic stress disorder, and I can identify it because this. And we have access to physicians who are much better educated in mental health disorders and can identify them much quicker, and therefore can get you turned around and get you into mental health services and get you to medication and the things that you need to help yourself, but also so that they can keep an eye on you and that they can help you. The suicide rate, it just in the last 10 years has come out. The suicide rates are explosive. The numbers are tragic, and there's a real call to action on behalf of veterans and uniformed personnel to say, this is not okay for the people that serve alongside us to feel alone in these situations. Like I said previously, Greenville County has a holistic wellness program that is just phenomenal. I mean, and it's not group therapy where you're sitting around and you're talking through your wartime injuries. You're talking through how those wartime injuries are affecting where you are right now and what are progressive solutions so that we can move past this, as opposed to living in this trauma forever. And there's access to resources now to help heal those wounds, because we are having those conversations. And more than ever, I think if you come out of military, and I'll say this about the withdrawal from Afghanistan, I was literally in Bagram last year. or 2 years ago. I was working for Fluor as a contractor. I was stationed on Bagram Airfield. So when I see the pictures of it being abandoned, I'm like, oh, that's where I went shopping. And we used to run that way. And I mean, literally, it is the base that I just left because nothing changes that quickly in the desert. But I watch this in the barrenness of that place. And I just think to myself, that's a lot of people out of work. That's a lot of people who are going to need a lot of services really, really quickly, especially those contractors, because once those contracts in, if you can't get on another one, it's very, very difficult to replace that income. Very, very difficult to replace that income. And those people are going to need access to resources quickly. And I hope everyone is not just looking at the politics in that sense of it, but really thinking about the people cost behind that. But I think the Upstate is doing a phenomenal job with mental health services and access to mental health. And I also think the Upstate is doing what they can to promote resources, but I think there could be a larger push for sure.
I appreciate your candidness in that answer. And I'm glad that you all in your generation are able to share with each other and lean on each other. And I think your point about the tools and technologies we have, like in 2003, you had to have a college email to get onto Facebook.
Right.
So that's a way that people can connect and people don't feel as lonely. Sometimes it makes people feel even more isolated. But I love how you brought those points in because that does change the way people are able to experience that. How I know you have run for political office. You have been extremely involved in the community. Tell me some of the things that in your conversation are the biggest misconceptions about veterans that you come across?
Well, so that's actually a very easy, I don't want to say it's an easy answer. It's an easy answer, but a hard answer. I think we as Americans, or at least in Greenville, South Carolina, there's an idea that veterans are very monolithic. There's an idea that, it's the country boys who love guns, who are white, who go and join the military because that's what they love to do. But if you really look at the statistics, and this is something that was recently brought up, that I think we need to shift the narrative about, here are the demographics that are disproportionate represented in the military. African Americans. So African Americans compose of about 14% of United States population, but they compose of between 19 to 21% of the military in currently and also within the veterans. And then Asian Americans are disproportionately represented. A number of different minority groups, for example, LGBTQ members of the military are also a large presence. And I think we need to shift that conversation about, especially in Greenville, South Carolina, of what a modern veteran look like, and what a modern veteran think like, and so on and so forth. So I think that is the largest misconceptions, at least in the upstate area, of who a veteran is. I think beyond that as well, there's also a feeling that regardless of where the background the veteran comes from, that they have this monolithic feeling towards a lot of issues with regard to the flag, with regard to a number of different things. I will just say as far as this, that, veterans are diverse. We have different opinions. We have different ideas. We have all kinds of different things. The thing that really unites us is our love for our country. But even beyond that, to quote James Baldwin, if that is surprising, like, the reason why we critique our country is because we love it so much. Unless we love somebody enough, we're not going to spend the time and the heartache to really critique what we see as fixable problems, right? So I think one of the things we really misconstrue, especially in the upstate, about how veterans feels, is that we think, they're angry about this monolithic thing, but really we're concerned about a number of different things. And it goes back to that purpose-driven thing, is veterans are much, much more likely to be civically engaged, whether it be voting, whether it be participation in politics, civic life, or anything along those lines, because we had to go through, and in my case, earn the right to be civically engaged. And I think, I think we, I think a lot of people have misconceptions about what our purpose is and why we are so engaged and so on and so forth. I don't know if that completely answers your question.
No, Hal, that was great. And I know you are a very busy gentleman. So is there anything that you want to share? One thing, couple things that you would like to leave with our viewers and our audience about the veterans experience in Greenville, whether that's your own or some of the folks that you've come in contact with?
Yeah. I will say that right now, with Greenville growing the way it is, I'm an investor in real estate and a number of things, and I have the privilege and the honor to serve some of my transitioning veteran friends by working with affordable housing. And Shantell, I'm definitely gonna reach out to you and talk to you a little bit about that. But even beyond that, Greenville, we're in the midst of a growing crisis. It's a crisis, but it's an opportunity. Homeless rate in Greenville is increasing. A large percentage, I'm not going to say like too large. I don't have the exact number with me, but South Carolina, we have the highest eviction rates in the entire country out of all 50 states. And the thing is, just 10 years ago, we weren't the highest. And so within just the past 10 years, because of the growth, because of everything that's happening in the state of South Carolina, because of the things that we believe in terms of what's making South Carolina a better place, it's having a disproportionate effect on our marginalized population, our vulnerable populations. And veterans, especially minority veterans, are a large part of those communities. So, I will say that with regard to specifically with the veterans, we really need to work more to push our state legislature. And as unfortunate as this sounds, we have to push the people who are least likely to change, which is the state legislature, because the South Carolina, our state legislature disproportionately have a large presence when it comes to funding for a lot of these programs and things along those lines. And we have to push them in terms of talking about what gentrification is doing to our vulnerable population, which include vulnerable veterans, and how we can tackle it. Because I just want to stress the importance of it, because if we just look at the growth of Greenville over the past 5 years, where the rent has doubled, and that growth is still ongoing, it's not slowing down by any stretch of the imagination. At this point, talking to the state legislature and doing something at the state level to fix those problems, it is not just a matter of who is suffering right now. It is a matter of the hundreds of thousands of people who are potentially in danger of being suffering in the future, in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years. So not just fixing a problem, but getting ahead of some more catastrophic problems further down the line, I think is one of the biggest clarion calls we need to have, both with homeless shelters, with the homeless situation, but more importantly, I mean, again, I'm passionate about mental health issues because I work with mental health professionals, and beyond that as well, as a medic, as a trained combat medic in the Army. In 2010, I actually was trained in mental health first aid and some of those identifications and things like that. So again, credit to the military for being an involving military and doing better than honestly the average the average, what we consider to be the American exposure to these mental health issues. I think we have to get at the root of some of these mental health issues, which is that lack of community support, that lack of safety net, that lack of resources. And again, these lack of resources, of course, need to come from like healthcare and a lot of these things. But affordable healthcare and affordable housing is part and parcel of that equation. And again, I can't stress that enough.
Well, thank you so much for that, Hal. And I know when I first was paying attention to the military, it was right when I started getting into college, and Vote Vets had just come out, and hearing them talk about that mental health part. And I know a couple of years ago it was 22 a day. there were 22 veterans a day that were killing themselves in suicide. And I believe one is too much. Like you said, I don't think that they make a big proportion or percentage. If there's just one homeless veteran, we're doing them wrong because they went over and sacrificed themselves for us. So we have to make sure we're putting in place systems that will protect them. Shantell, I want you to pick off anywhere where Hal left off, or kind of wherever you feel led to go. Thank you, Hal, for your time.
I must say I apologize, but I gotta run. Thank you so much, and I look forward to talking with you guys more. And definitely feel free to reach out to me, Shantell. Everybody here has my contact information.
It was great to meet you, Hal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so just in the interest of time, I will co-sign again what Hal said. It's the coming problem, right? It's ironic we're both in affordable housing spaces. It's the coming problems that worry me, much more so than the current ones. We are in a crisis in Greenville County, and it is a crisis that affects veterans, particularly in a way that is resolvable. Getting veterans access to the resources that are available to them, letting them know where to find those resources and how to access them is one of the, I am always surprised when I meet a veteran who does not know how to access care at the VA because I know where to find that information. But then when I look back and figure out how I got that information, I was in a very unique situation to obtain it because I was working in the building where you go to apply for it. I was working at the county square. So it's like, of course, you know where it is. You walk past it every day on your way home from work. But there are so many veterans who are not in that unique position or that unique situation, and they just don't know where to start. And I don't know if it's always visible where to start and how to start and who is here for your care and who you can trust is not trying to take advantage of you and what can sometimes be a very vulnerable population. I think as a party, as a political party, by making those resources more clear, more visible, by demanding that the state Senate make those resources more clear and more visible. And then once they become clear and visible, making sure that there are ways that we're engaging the public to notify them of those resources, which is always a very difficult thing. The PPP grants, I think, was one of the big ones for me, where there was all of this money for veteran entrepreneurs, and it just wasn't being utilized. Nobody was applying for it, and everyone was intimidated by what they thought the process was, and the process really wasn't that difficult. It was not easy. And again, this is my privilege talking, the advantages that I have because I am computer literate, because I can read, because I can write, all things that we think of as prerequisites for people in the military, but there's ways to get around everything. And being able to say, hey, if you can't figure the process to become a disabled veteran and to get a disability rating is cumbersome at best. And at times, it is designed to sabotage you. I don't care what they say. But having resources within the Democratic Party, making sure that the state is funding civilians, VA civilians, who that is their job, to make sure that you understand the process. And if they have to sit there with you and fill out the form, that you get that done. I think that is how you support veterans, because the resources and the access and the funding is there. Because people love to run on political campaigns and talk about all the things they're going to do for veterans and how much they love veterans. So they set aside the money, but then they never tell anybody how to access the resource. And I think that's something that we could really start to key on. And I would say that that is one of the most important ways that veterans can be served in the Greenville County and in the Upstate in general.
I love that. It's the 2 A's, in my opinion. It's the awareness.
Yes.
You talked about notifying them. I don't know that I can win the lotto if I don't know the lotto doesn't exist. And I'm just using the lotto as an example, but I love that part of it. And then, like you said, the access. Hey, there's this big bad thing called PPP. Well, actually, let me break it down for you. It's not as big and bad as you think it is. It's actually information you already have, and let me help you locate that. So I think we do need to have those conduits, and I think the Democratic Party can step in and be those helpers, can be those connectors to be able to help those folks through those processes. Sure. So I appreciate your answers. I always enjoy hearing from you, and I hope our viewers and our listeners learned a little bit more about you and some of the experiences that veterans have in Greenville. So thank you so much for participating.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. It was an honor, as always, to be invited. Thank you so much for having me, the whole party. And also, it was a great honor to meet Hal. So that was awesome. So thank you. I appreciate
Absolutely.
it.
We'll definitely be following Shantell. She is going to be a force of nature, is a force of nature, but will continue to be a force of nature in our community. I appreciate all of you guys joining us in our second Thursday conversation, Veterans in Politics. I hope you all have a great evening, and we hope to see you all at our barbecue on July 24th. Thank you all so much, and I hope you have a great evening.